Imagine standing in your wedding dress as your future sister-in-law grabs the microphone and announces to all 180 guests that you're pregnant, when you're not. For Leilani, this wasn't hypothetical, it was reality. When her carefully planned cultural ceremony was hijacked by a calculated lie designed to steal her thunder, most people would have crumbled in tears or lashed out in rage. But our guest chose strategy instead. I'm Eliza, and today on Wedding Day Justice, we're exploring how one bride transformed a humiliating moment into an opportunity to expose a deeper deception that saved not just her wedding day, but someone else's entire future.
Thank you, Eliza. I'm sharing this story because I want others to know that responding to public humiliation with dignity can be more powerful than any emotional outburst. My grandmother taught me that when someone brings shame to a sacred ceremony, truth is the only appropriate response. Let me tell you what happened. For as long as I can remember, I've dreamed about my wedding day. As a mixed Native Hawaiian and Lakota woman, I always knew I wanted a ceremony that honored both sides of my heritage. When Bradley proposed after 3 years together, we immediately began planning a celebration that would blend our cultures and families in the most meaningful way. We chose to hold the ceremony on Oahu's North Shore, where my grandmother, Tudu Nanny, as we call her, still lives in our family home. At 87, she's the keeper of our family's traditions, and having her blessing meant everything to me. The venue was a breathtaking beachfront property that cost us $15,000 for the weekend, but the moment we saw the sun setting over the water with the mountains in the background, we knew it was worth every penny. Bradley's family flew in from South Dakota, including his sister Vanessa. While Bradley and I have always been close, Vanessa and I had a more complicated relationship. She'd always been competitive with me, making subtle comments about my mixed heritage or questioning my career choices. I'd chalked it up to sibling rivalry by extension and tried to include her in everything, hoping we'd eventually bond. When she arrived a week before the wedding, I asked her to be one of my bridesmaids, a gesture I hoped would bring us closer. She seemed genuinely touched, hugging me tightly and saying she was honored. For the first time, I felt like we were finally connecting. The wedding preparations were intense but joyful. My mother and aunties spent days creating traditional lei garlands, costing nearly $800 in rare flowers. My father and uncles prepared an imu, an underground oven, for the kalawa pig that would be served at the reception. Bradley's family brought meaningful items from their Lakota traditions, including a star quilt his grandmother had made for us and eagle feathers that his father had permission to use in the ceremony. The night before our wedding, we held a rehearsal dinner for our 180 guests. The atmosphere was electric. Family members who had never met were sharing stories, laughing together, and celebrating our union. Tudu Nanny presented me with her mother's koa wood bowl that had been in our family for generations. It would be used in the ceremony to hold sacred water from both Hawaii and the Black Hills. This bowl carries the mana, the spiritual energy of our ancestors, she told me, her weathered hands trembling slightly as she passed it to me. Tomorrow, when you join with Bradley, you bring together not just two people, but two peoples. I couldn't hold back my tears. This was everything I'd ever wanted, a wedding that honored who I was and where I came from. Bradley squeezed my hand under the table, and I felt complete. Little did I know that within 24 hours, this perfect moment would be shattered in the most humiliating way possible, and by someone I had tried so hard to welcome into my life. The morning of our wedding day dawned with perfect Hawaiian weather, just enough clouds to keep the temperature comfortable but plenty of sunshine illuminating the turquoise ocean. I woke up in my childhood bedroom at Tudu Nanny's house, where I'd stayed the night before according to tradition. My bridesmaids arrived early, bringing coffee and malasadas, ready to help me prepare for the biggest day of my life. Vanessa was among them, oddly quiet but smiling. She volunteered to organize everyone's belongings in the getting ready suite at the venue, which surprised me but seemed like a genuine effort to be helpful. I was touched by her initiative and thought maybe the wedding preparations had finally broken down the walls between us. While the other bridesmaids were arranging my custom haku lei crown, which had cost $600 and featured rare white, owapuhi flowers, I realized I'd forgotten my something borrowed, a pearl bracelet from my mother. I headed to the getting ready suite to retrieve it from my overnight bag. The suite was empty when I arrived, everyone still busy with preparations in the main house. As I rummaged through my bag, I noticed Vanessa's designer purse had fallen over on the vanity, spilling some of its contents. Being the organized person I am, I started gathering her things to put them back. That's when I saw it, a pregnancy test box partially visible inside her purse. My heart skipped a beat. Was Vanessa pregnant? Was this why she'd seemed different lately? I couldn't help but feel a surge of happiness for her, thinking this might explain her mood swings and perhaps even bring us closer as I would become an aunt. I carefully tucked the box back into her purse, pretending I hadn't seen it. This was her news to share when she was ready. I found my bracelet and returned to my bridesmaids, now even more determined to make this day special for everyone, including Vanessa. The ceremony preparations continued. The beachfront had been transformed with tropical flowers, tea leaf decorations, and a handcrafted arch where Bradley and I would exchange vows. The chairs were arranged in a semicircle, representing the embrace of both families coming together. A traditional Hawaiian trio played softly as guests began to arrive, many wearing lei or special regalia to honor the cultural significance of the day. 2 hours before the ceremony, I was getting my hair done when I needed to use the bathroom. As I approached the suite's bathroom door, I heard Vanessa's voice inside. She wasn't alone. She was on a FaceTime call with someone, and she wasn't whispering. "You won't believe what I'm about to do," she said, her voice carrying a tone I'd never heard before. "Little Miss Perfect Hawaiian Princess is about to have her perfect day completely ruined." I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. "I've got it all planned," Vanessa continued. "During the reception, I'm going to make an announcement congratulating the happy couple on their baby. Everyone will be shocked since they haven't announced anything, because there is no baby." My blood ran cold as I listened to her laugh. "But here's the genius part. I'll act like Leilani told me in confidence. She'll deny it, of course, but I'll say I found her pregnancy test. I'll look so concerned, like I thought everyone already knew. It'll create total chaos. Bradley has always said he wants to wait for kids until they're financially stable. He'll think she was trying to trap him." I backed away from the door, my heart pounding. The pregnancy test I'd seen wasn't Vanessa's, it was a prop for her sabotage. She was planning to humiliate me in front of our entire family on my wedding day by announcing a fake pregnancy. I retreated to a quiet corner of the house, trying to process what I'd just heard. Why would she do this? What had I ever done to deserve such cruelty? I thought about confronting her immediately, but realized that could lead to a scene before the wedding even began. No, I needed to be strategic. This was my day, and I wasn't going to let her ruin it. I rejoined my bridesmaids, forcing a smile and pretending everything was fine. But inside, my mind was racing. I needed evidence of her plan, and I needed to decide what to do with it. Despite the knot of anxiety in my stomach, I was determined not to let Vanessa's plot ruin the ceremony itself. This sacred joining of our families deserved my full presence. As the traditional Hawaiian wedding march began, I took my father's arm and prepared to walk toward my future. The path to the altar was lined with tea leaves and orchids, costing nearly $3,000 for the floral arrangements alone. Our 180 guests stood as I appeared, many wiping away tears. I spotted Bradley's parents in the front row, his mother wearing the shell necklace I'd given her as a welcome gift. Next to them sat Tudu Nanny, resplendent in her finest kihei wrap and family heirloom jewelry, her eyes shining with pride. And there was Bradley, waiting for me under the arch, handsome in his tailored suit with a male lei draped around his shoulders. The look of pure love on his face momentarily washed away my worries. This man was my partner, my rock. Together, we would handle whatever came our way, even his sister's betrayal. But first, I needed proof. During the ceremony, while a family friend performed a traditional Hawaiian chant, I glanced at the bridal suite where our belongings were stored. Vanessa's purse would still be there, and possibly her phone. If I could find evidence of her plan, the pregnancy test, or text messages, I could counter her announcement before she humiliated me. The ceremony was beautiful beyond my wildest dreams. Bradley and I exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, incorporating phrases in Hawaiian and Lakota. His voice broke when he promised to honor my culture as his own. We performed the traditional water ceremony, pouring sacred waters from both our homelands into Tudunani's koa bowl, symbolizing the joining of our lives and lineages. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. Bradley kissed me with such tenderness that for a moment, I forgot about Vanessa's scheme. We turned to face our guests as a married couple, and I caught sight of her in the second row, clapping politely, but with a gleam in her eye that sent chills down my spine. The recessional music began, and Bradley and I walked back down the aisle, stopping to hug family members along the way. As planned, we would have 30 minutes for photos while guests enjoyed cocktails before moving to the reception tent for dinner. "I need to freshen up before photos," I whispered to Bradley, squeezing his hand. "I'll be quick." He nodded, distracted by his groomsmen's congratulations. I slipped away to the bridal suite, heart-pounding. I had maybe 5 minutes before someone would come looking for me. Vanessa's purse was right where she'd left it. I hesitated. This felt wrong, invading her privacy, but remembering her cruel words steeled my resolve. I carefully opened her bag and found the pregnancy test box. It was empty, the test itself presumably hidden somewhere for her big reveal. Next to her purse lay her phone. To my shock, it wasn't locked. Had she been so confident in her plan that she'd grown careless? I tapped on her messages and quickly found a conversation with her friend Amber. The texts confirmed everything I'd overheard. "Operation Humiliate Hawaiian Princess is a go. Got the test. Will announce during reception toasts. OMG, you're evil. Her face will be priceless. Bradley deserves better than some cultural mutt who's always making everything about her heritage. He'll thank me later." My hands shook with anger as I quickly took photos of the messages with my own phone. I also found a note in her Memos app detailing exactly what she planned to say. The depth of her hatred stunned me. All this time, while I'd been trying to welcome her into my family, she'd been resenting my very existence. I heard voices approaching and quickly put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Slipping my phone into a hidden pocket in my dress, I grabbed a lipstick and pretended to be touching up my makeup when my maid of honor entered. "There you are, everyone's waiting for photos," she said, then paused, studying my face. "Are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just overwhelmed with happiness," I lied. "Let's go make some memories." As we walked to the beach for photos, I was already formulating my plan. Vanessa wanted to humiliate me during the reception toasts. Fine, but I would be ready for her. This was still my wedding day, and I would not let her desecrate it without consequences. The reception was a sensory feast that had taken months to perfect. Our 180 guests were seated in a stunning open-air tent overlooking the ocean, with string lights twinkling overhead like stars. Each table featured centerpieces of native Hawaiian plants and Lakota-inspired beadwork, costing $120 per arrangement. The live band played a mix of contemporary songs and traditional music from both our cultures. The Kalawa pig had been unearthed from the emu to applause, its smoky aroma mingling with the scent of fresh plumeria and ocean air. The signature cocktails, a Lilikoi Mai Tai and a chokecherry spritz, honoring both our backgrounds, flowed freely. By all appearances, it was the perfect celebration. But beneath my smile, I was hypervigilant, watching Vanessa's every move. She sat at the family table, occasionally whispering to the cousins seated beside her, checking her watch. I'd noticed her slip the pregnancy test into her clutch purse during the cocktail hour. The evidence of her plot was secure in my phone, but I hadn't decided exactly how to use it yet. Dinner was served, a carefully curated menu featuring Hawaiian poke, Lakota wajapi berry sauce over locally caught fish, and taro rolls that had cost $32 per person. As we ate, Bradley kept squeezing my hand under the table, his eyes shining with happiness. He had no idea what his sister was planning, and part of me wanted to protect him from the knowledge. But I knew that wasn't possible. "You're quiet," he murmured during the main course. "Everything okay?" "Perfect," I assured him, touching the intricate haku lei crown still adorning my hair. Just taking it all in. As dinner concluded, the MC announced it was time for toasts. Bradley's father went first, his voice breaking as he welcomed me to the family. My father followed with a beautiful speech that incorporated proverbs from both our cultures. Friends shared funny stories and heartfelt wishes. Then Vanessa stood up, champagne flute in hand, and my stomach clenched. This was it. She hadn't been scheduled to give a toast, she was making her move. "I'd like to say a few words about my brother and his new wife," she announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet tent. The MC, looking confused, handed her the microphone. Vanessa took it with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Bradley and Leilani," she began, "what a beautiful day this has been. So many traditions, so much culture." She emphasized the last word strangely, and I saw a few guests exchange glances. "But there's one tradition we haven't acknowledged yet," she continued, her voice taking on a concerned tone. "And I feel like, as family, it's important to celebrate all the blessings coming your way." I felt Bradley stiffen beside me. Across the table, Tudu Nanny was watching Vanessa with narrowed eyes. "I want to be the first to congratulate you both on your growing family," Vanessa announced, her voice ringing through the speakers. "I know you wanted to keep the baby news quiet, but I think it's wonderful." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Bradley turned to me, confusion written across his face. "What is she talking about?" he whispered. Before I could respond, Vanessa continued, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "Leilani, I accidentally found your pregnancy test when I was helping organize the bridal suite. I'm sorry if you weren't ready to share yet, but isn't this wonderful news, everyone?" She held up the pregnancy test from her purse, waving it like a trophy. "A positive test. Bradley's going to be a daddy." The tent erupted in confused murmurs. I saw my parents exchanging bewildered glances. Bradley's mother covered her mouth in shock, and Bradley, my husband of just 3 hours, stared at me with hurt and confusion in his eyes. "Leilani," he questioned, his voice barely audible over the growing whispers. "Is this true? Are you pregnant?" I stood up slowly, my legs feeling unsteady. Every eye in the room was on me. Some guests had their phones out, no doubt already sharing the drama on social media. My perfect cultural wedding was turning into a spectacle. "No," I said clearly, my voice carrying despite not having the microphone. "I am not pregnant." Vanessa's face registered momentary confusion before she recovered. "But I found your test," she insisted, holding it higher. "Maybe you're in denial. It's okay to be scared." "That is not my test, Vanessa," I interrupted, my voice stronger now. "And you know it." The murmuring grew louder. I saw some guests shifting uncomfortably, others leaning forward with interest. My mother stood up, moving to my side in silent support. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Vanessa said, her voice faltering slightly as she realized her plan wasn't unfolding as expected. "I was just trying to celebrate good news." "May I have the microphone, please?" I asked the MC, who quickly brought it to me, looking relieved to pass this situation to someone else. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. This was not how I had imagined my wedding reception, but I would not let Vanessa's cruelty stand unchallenged. "I need a moment to address this," I told our guests, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Please excuse me." I handed the microphone back to the MC and walked with dignified steps toward the exit of the tent. Behind me, I heard the confused murmurs grow louder, Bradley calling my name, and Vanessa's voice saying something about hormones making me emotional. But I wasn't running away. I was getting my phone and the evidence that would turn this humiliation back on its architect. I returned to the reception tent within minutes, phone in hand and a strange calm settling over me. The band had started playing softly to fill the awkward silence, but no one was dancing. Guests sat at their tables, whispering among themselves. Bradley stood in conversation with his parents, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. Vanessa remained near the head table, sipping champagne with a satisfied smile that made my blood boil. Tudu Nanny caught my eye as I entered. She sat regally in her chair, her weathered face showing not embarrassment but quiet fury. She nodded to me once, a gesture that conveyed everything: strength, dignity, and the unspoken permission to defend our family's honor. I approached the MC and whispered in his ear. He looked surprised but nodded, handing me the microphone again. The music faded. "Aloha mai kaku," I began, using the traditional Hawaiian greeting that acknowledges everyone present. "Thank you for your patience during this unexpected moment in our celebration." The tent fell silent. Even the ocean seemed to quiet its waves. In Hawaiian culture, we have a concept called pono, I continued, my voice growing stronger. It means righteousness, but more than that, it means a balance that must be restored when harmony is disrupted. The Lakota people have a similar concept of justice and truth. I looked directly at Vanessa, who shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa, would you please join me up here? I think we should clear this up together. She hesitated, then plastered on a smile and walked toward me, clearly thinking she could maintain her charade. As she approached, I turned to address our guests again. Marriage is sacred in both my cultures, so is family, and so is truth. I paused, gathering my strength. The truth is, I am not pregnant. That test does not belong to me. Vanessa tried to interrupt, but I continued, my voice unwavering. What's most important now is that all of you, our cherished guests who traveled so far and have blessed us with your presence, understand what has happened here today. I turned to the tech coordinator who had set up the projection system for our photo slideshow earlier. Following the plan I'd quickly explained to him, he connected my phone to the projector. The large screen at the front of the tent illuminated with the photos I'd taken of Vanessa's text messages. Operation Humiliate Hawaiian Princess is a go. Got the test. Will announce during reception toasts. I read aloud, the words projected for all 180 guests to see. A collective gasp filled the tent. Vanessa's face drained of color. Bradley deserves better than some cultural mutt who's always making everything about her heritage. I continued, my voice remarkably steady despite the slur against my identity. He'll thank me later. I scrolled to show her detailed notes planning the fake pregnancy announcement. This was a calculated attempt to humiliate me on my wedding day, to mock my cultural heritage, and to drive a wedge between me and my new husband. Bradley had moved to stand beside me, his face hardening as he read his sister's words. His parents looked stricken, his mother covering her mouth in horror. Vanessa, I have to ask, why? I said, turning to face her directly. What did I ever do to deserve this level of hatred? She stood frozen, all pretense gone, caught in front of everyone she'd tried to manipulate. The pregnancy test dangled forgotten from her hand. You think you're so special with your ceremonies and traditions, she finally spat, her voice shaking. Everyone always fawning over your rich cultural heritage, while normal people like me are just boring. Bradley was so enchanted by your exotic background that he couldn't see anything else. I was just showing him the truth, that you use your culture to manipulate people. The ugly words hung in the air. Several guests made sounds of disapproval. My father stood up, his face a thundercloud, but my mother gently pulled him back down. That test isn't even real, Vanessa added defiantly. I drew the second line on with a pen. I nodded slowly. I know, and I want you to know something, Vanessa. I've spent my entire life navigating between two worlds, sometimes feeling like I don't fully belong in either. My cultural heritage isn't a costume I put on to seem exotic or to manipulate people. It's who I am. It's the wisdom of my ancestors, the practices that give my life meaning, the community that holds me up. I looked around at our guests. Today, we invited all of you to witness and participate in those traditions because they matter, because sharing them is an act of love. Tudu Nanny rose from her seat then, her 87-year-old frame straight and dignified. She walked slowly to join me, bringing with her the koa wood bowl from our ceremony. The tent fell completely silent in respect. In our culture, she said, her voice surprisingly strong, when someone brings poison to a celebration, we don't respond with more poison. We respond with cleansing. She held the bowl toward Vanessa. This water contains the mana of two peoples joined in love today. You may choose to wash your hands in it, symbolically cleansing the harm you intended, or you may leave this sacred gathering. The moment was more powerful than any confrontation I could have planned. Tudu Nanny had transformed an ugly situation into an opportunity for healing, or at least, an opportunity for Vanessa to acknowledge her wrong. Vanessa stared at the bowl, then at the faces watching her. Her shoulders slumped as the weight of what she'd done seemed to finally hit her. Without a word, she turned and walked out of the tent, leaving the pregnancy test behind on a table. Bradley squeezed my hand, then addressed our guests. I want to apologize to all of you, especially to my wife and her family. The word wife sent a ripple of warmth through me despite everything. What happened here doesn't reflect the values my parents taught me. Please, let's continue celebrating this union that brings together not just two people, but two beautiful traditions. He turned to the band and nodded. They began playing a traditional Hawaiian wedding song, and Bradley led me to the dance floor for our first dance, not the one we'd planned, but somehow more meaningful now. As we swayed together, he whispered, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea she felt that way about you, about us." "It's not your fault," I assured him, "and it's over now." "You handled that with such grace," he said, his eyes shining with admiration. "Most people would have just screamed or thrown her out." I smiled, feeling the weight lifting from my shoulders. "I had good teachers," I said, glancing at Tudu Nanny, who was now being escorted to the dance floor by my father, the guests applauding the family matriarch. One by one, our guests joined us on the dance floor. Bradley's parents approached us, his mother embracing me with tears in her eyes. "We are so deeply sorry," she said, "and so proud to have you in our family." What had begun as humiliation had transformed into something powerful, a true demonstration of the values I cherished from both my cultures: dignity, truth, and the possibility of healing. As the night continued, the fake pregnancy announcement became a footnote rather than the headline of our wedding day. Later, as Bradley and I thanked guests for coming, many of them mentioned not the drama, but how moved they were by the water ceremony, the traditional dances, the blending of customs. Several of Bradley's relatives asked if they could learn more about Hawaiian traditions, while my cousins exchanged contact information with his Lakota relatives. Vanessa's attempt to mock my heritage had backfired completely. Instead, she had inadvertently created an even deeper appreciation for it. The sun rose the morning after our wedding, painting the Hawaiian sky in shades of pink and gold. I woke up beside Bradley in our oceanfront suite, momentarily disoriented before the events of the previous day came flooding back. The joy of our ceremony, the shock of Vanessa's sabotage, the powerful moment of truth that followed. "Good morning, wife," Bradley murmured, pulling me closer. "How are you feeling?" I considered the question carefully. "Surprisingly at peace," I answered honestly. Yesterday wasn't what I expected, but in some ways it was more meaningful than the perfect day I'd imagined. He nodded, his eyes serious. "My parents want to meet us for breakfast. They're devastated about what Vanessa did. Dad said she left the island last night, took a red-eye back to the mainland." Part of me felt relief knowing she was gone, but another part felt a strange sadness. Not for the relationship we'd never had, but for the person who carried such resentment that she'd try to ruin a wedding. "Do you want to see them?" I asked Bradley, knowing this was difficult for him too. After all, it was his sister who had tried to humiliate us. "Yes," he said firmly. "They're still our family, and they want to make this right." Breakfast with Bradley's parents was initially awkward, but ultimately healing. His mother couldn't stop apologizing, tears filling her eyes every few minutes. "We had no idea she felt that way about your heritage," she said, clutching my hand across the table. "We've always taught our children to respect all cultures. I don't know where we went wrong with her." "Sometimes people develop resentments we can't explain," I said gently. "What matters is how we respond to them." Bradley's father, normally stoic, looked years older today. "We've always been so proud of Bradley for finding someone who values tradition and family the way you do, Leilani. Please know that we consider you a daughter now, and your heritage enriches our family." His words brought tears to my eyes. This was the silver lining. Vanessa's attempt to mock my cultural identity had instead cemented its value to my new family. After breakfast, Bradley and I fulfilled another tradition, visiting Tudu Nanny before leaving for our honeymoon. She was in her garden, tending to her sacred plants despite having stayed up late at the reception. "Tudu," I called softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, a smile lighting up her face. "Ah, the newlyweds, come sit with me." We settled on her lanai, the ocean visible in the distance. She poured us tea from plants she'd grown herself, a blend she said would bring harmony to our marriage. "You faced a great test yesterday," she said without preamble. "Both of you." Bradley nodded respectfully. Your wisdom turned a terrible moment into something powerful, to-do nanny. I'll never forget that. She waved away his praise. It was Leilani who showed true strength. She could have responded with anger, with shame, with revenge. Instead, she chose dignity and truth. I learned from the best, I said, squeezing her weathered hand. Listen to me now, to-do nanny said, her voice taking on the rhythmic cadence she used when sharing important knowledge. In life, there will always be those who try to diminish what they don't understand. Your dual heritage is not a division, it is a multiplication. You carry twice the wisdom, twice the strength, twice the kilina, responsibility to share these traditions. She turned to Bradley. And you, by honoring her cultures, by standing with her yesterday, have shown you are worthy to help carry this legacy forward. What about Vanessa? I asked hesitantly. I don't know if I can forgive what she tried to do. To-do nanny sipped her tea thoughtfully. Forgiveness is not for her, it is for you. It doesn't mean what she did was acceptable. It means you refuse to carry the weight of her actions. And if she never apologizes, Bradley asked, the pain evident in his voice. Then that is her burden to bear, she replied simply. But your door remains open should she choose to walk through it with a sincere heart. As we prepared to leave, to-do nanny pressed a small package wrapped in tea leaves into my hands. For your journey, she said, a reminder. Later, on the plane to our honeymoon in New Zealand, I carefully unwrapped her gift. Inside was a small carved pendant made from koa wood and inlaid with a tiny piece of red pipestone, a sacred material to the Lakota people. Somehow, she had created a physical representation of my blended heritage. A note accompanied it. When waters from different sources mix in the same bowl, they cannot be separated again. They become something new, something stronger. This is you now, both waters, both strengths, inseparable. I fastened the pendant around my neck, feeling its weight against my skin. Bradley watched me with love in his eyes. Your grandmother is incredible, he said. I hope we can raise our children with even a fraction of her wisdom. Our children, I repeated, smiling at the thought, who will carry both our heritages forward? And who will know the true story of our wedding day, he added. Not as a day when someone tried to humiliate you, but as the day you showed everyone the power of responding to hatred with dignity. I leaned against his shoulder, watching the clouds pass beneath us. The wedding hadn't been what I'd dreamed of all those years. It had been more real, more challenging, and ultimately more meaningful than any perfect, unblemished celebration could have been. In Hawaiian, we have a saying, "Ai kawa mamua, kawa mahop." The future is found in the past. By honoring my ancestors' ways even in the face of mockery, I had created a stronger foundation for our future together. And that was worth more than any picture-perfect wedding day could ever be. As for Vanessa, I didn't know if reconciliation would ever be possible. But I did know this. Her attempt to use my cultural identity as a weapon against me had failed completely. Instead, it had become my shield and my strength, just as it had always been, just as it would always be. The pendant rested against my heart as we flew toward our future, carrying with us the waters of two traditions that could never again be separated.
Leilani, thank you for sharing your story with us today. What you experienced was truly painful, but your response reveals a powerful truth. When we respond to public humiliation with calculated truth rather than emotional reaction, we restore not just our dignity but the sanctity of important moments. This isn't about revenge. It's about ensuring that sacred ceremonies remain sacred, even when others try to desecrate them. I'm Eliza Quinn, and remember, here on Wedding Day Justice, veils off, justice on.